12 Rules for Life. Jordan B. Peterson, it's out now. It has been number one in the Sunday Times bestseller list. It's been number one all over the world, and it still is, and it will be again in various places. That has been, but isn't currently. So what I love about 12 Rules for Life is the rules you haven't included, because, of course, there were more than 12 and you left some out. Give us some of your greatest hits that never made it.
Make one room in your house as beautiful as possible.
How good is that?
Yeah, that's a really good one.
See, I want
one of the things that I recommend, and I have written, because I'm writing the next book, and it'll...
Do you want any help?
Well, this is helpful, what we're doing here. This discussion is helpful, but it's really useful to try to concentrate on making something beautiful, because it helps you enter into a relationship with what's beautiful. And because life is hard and tragic, and because it's tainted by malevolence, and because you're going to have difficulties in your life, you have to find, I would say, places of power and transcendence that help you cope with that, and to establish a relationship with things that are beautiful helps you do that. I mean, most people's easiest route into that is music, I would say. And I know people live for music in many ways, you know, and it plays an incredibly important role in people's lives. And it's because it links them to something that's transcendent and beyond themselves. And you might think of that as, well, an unnecessary luxury, but that isn't how people treat it, and it's not. And so to try to take a room and make it beautiful means that you have to develop your taste and your relationship with beauty, and that can take you out of your day-to-day foolishness and suffering, and that's an extremely useful thing to do.
Yeah, music is what feelings sound like. It was on a children's hospice wall, which I loved, and it's true. Music does amazing things. We know that, and of course, you know, the greatest music isn't of the mind, is it? It's of the being. It's of the essence of life.
It's very tightly tied to the body, which is why people move when they listen to music. And so it speaks of, and music has always been fascinating to me, because it provides people with a direct intimation of meaning that can't be rationally criticized. So even nihilistic punk rockers are happy to be alive when they're listening to their nihilistic punk rock, which is quite funny, you know, because the feelings that grip them while they're listening to that music actually run contrary to their nihilistic philosophy, and they get reattached to life through that.
And one guess of how it's going to be in 30 years' time?
I'm hoping, and I think there's a real possibility, that it will be inconceivably better. I mean, the world's on a trajectory. We're on some very interesting trajectories. We could rid the world of the 5 major communicative diseases. Bill Gates is hitting that real hard with a fair bit of success. We could certainly be in a situation where no one is hungry, except for politically motivated reasons. So there's no shortage of food. We could be in a situation where everyone has hot water and electricity and plumbing and education, so that we can capitalize on all the intelligence that still lays latent out there. I think we could have the world greener than it is now, with more forests. We could put the oceans back together. I think things could be incomparably better if we wanted them to be. I truly believe that's within our grasp.
We were given all the things that we needed by who or whatever gave them to us to survive longer than any other species, and suddenly we've dealt ourselves into the top 10 favourites to become extinct.
Yeah, well, I don't think we need to do that.
What's that about?
Well, you know, life is very hard for people, and because we're conscious, and we're conscious of our own limits and our own mortality, and human life really is tragic, and there is an element of malevolence to it. And so life, in some sense, you can regard life in some sense as unbearable, and sometimes life is unbearable for people. It's just too much. But I think that we have a nobility of spirit and the potential at hand to be able to do something about that in a fundamental way, to set things right. And at least we could try, because we don't have anything better to do. And that's, you know, one of the things that I'm talking to my audiences about constantly. It's like, look, I know that your life is bounded by tragedy, that life is suffering in a fundamental way, as the great religious stories have always said. The question is, what attitude do you take towards that? And one attitude is, that's absolutely unbearable and inexcusable. And then you become bitter, and then you make it worse. And I don't see that as helpful. And the alternative is to say, I'll hoist up the cross of my suffering and stagger up the hill towards the kingdom of God. And that's the right attitude. It's like, try to make things better. I know you have a tough time of it. Like, everyone has a tough time of it, and I'm not being naive about that. I truly understand that. But that doesn't mean that the right thing, it still is the case that the right thing is to do everything you can to make it better. The sky's the limit. And so why don't we see what we can do?
So at the very least, try.
At the very least, try. Make the hypothesis that your life is worth living and that you have something to add to the cosmos, because you do. You're a divine locus of consciousness. You partake in the bringing to being of reality. And if you don't, you leave a hole in the world. I truly believe that that's the case. I think that's a more fundamental truth than the truth that life is suffering. Truth number 2, you have the nobility of spirit to contend with that and transcend it. That's more true.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks for the invitation.